Here we are at the end of 2017. We've seen some terrible films as usual, some really good films, but this has been overall a pretty good year for film. One of the best in recent memory. There's been some real stinkers, which we'll talk about in the worst of the year video, but this was actually a really hard list to make, and I have a lot of honorable mentions, which I have tried to hone down in the past to just a few. This year, there are just some films that didn't quite make my list that have to be mentioned, like All the Money in the World, Brawl in Cell Block 99, Wonder Woman, Call Me By Your Name, Stronger, The Big Sick, The Last Jedi, Mother, Get Out, John Wick 2, and A Silent Voice. 2017 had a lot of great films, but a lot of very polarizing ones as well, like The Last Jedi or Mother. Fans are divided on both of those films. Some think it's a masterpiece. Some think it's the worst film they've ever seen ever. That's one of the most beautiful things about film, though, is that the opinions are going to be varying. We're not all robots. We can all think and act differently, which is why the next 15 films are going to be different for myself than probably for you. I chose 15 because there are just too many this year that I did not want to leave off this list. So let's get started with number 15. Good Time, directed by the Safdie brothers, was much more than a good time. It was a great time. That was a horrible pun, and I'm going to go jump off a cliff. That being said, I had a really great time watching this film. I thought the direction was gorgeous. I thought it had Robert Pattinson's best performance, and it was also a very ballsy movie. A lot of things that happen in this film, many directors, especially quite famous directors and writers, would not even think of doing. That's one of the reasons why I have a lot of respect for the Safdie brothers for making a film that is quite subversive and different and extremely thrilling. Oh, hi, great movie. The Disaster Artist was everything I wanted it to be and more. I was expecting a movie that was in the know about the hilarity that is The Room, but what I got was a surprisingly heartfelt film about friendship and trying to make it in the film industry. It has one of the best performances of the year in James Franco's Tommy Wiseau. It's definitely worth checking out, even if you're not a huge fan of The Room. I feel like each year Mike Flanagan makes a great film, and each year Mike Flanagan makes a great film that people don't talk about enough. Geralds Game is one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever made, one of the very few that I think might be better than the book itself. This is also quite an achievement for Carlo Gugino, who gives one of the best performances I've seen all year. The film made my stomach churn at many moments, and it was surprisingly powerful emotionally as well. It told a really great story that I wasn't expecting. It wasn't just about a woman in handcuffs chained to a bed and, oh my God, what do I do? It goes through her past life quite effectively, and it's on Netflix, so check this one out. Baby Driver was one of the most fast-paced films of the year. Definitely not slow, despite the song that has become famous ever since the film's release, Was He Slow? Edgar Wright has consistently made good to great films, and Baby Driver is just another one in his filmography that is very much so worthy of being included in the rest. Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri wasn't just the most uniquely titled film of the year, it was also one of the most unique films of the year. Frances McDormand gives maybe her best performance ever. It's a film that pulls no punches when it comes to dialogue that could be off-putting for some. It dares to have arcs for horrible characters in which they could possibly be redeemed, which is also a little hard to come by in film. It was gorgeously shot, compellingly acted, filled with powerful scenes, and it was also a lot funnier than I expected it to be. Definitely check this one out if you didn't get to see it when it was in theaters. Similar to Three Billboards, I've never seen a film like A Ghost Story. In the way it was shot, the way it was edited, the performances by Rooney Mara, the extremely long pie-eating scene, the film is just begging to be disliked by most people, and yet it was one of the most fulfilling experiences that I had at a theater this year. I found this movie extremely touching. It also has one of the best endings and songs featured in that ending of the entire year. I highly suggest checking this one out if you missed it. Molly's Game continues Aaron Sorkin's streak of fantastic writing and introduces us to him as a very competent director. Jessica Chastain, as usual, was terrific in a film that was extremely hard to believe despite being a true story, and consistently compelling from beginning to end. Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk will go down in history, perhaps not as the best character-driven war film, but one of the best technically told war films ever put to screen. Every scene in Dunkirk is masterfully helmed. The action sequences and all of the performances there within, the camera work and Hans Zimmer's score, all combined to make one of the most thrilling experiences of the year, and it was one of the few films I got to see an actual 70mm this year, which was quite an experience. Wind River was one of the biggest surprises for me in 2017. Jeremy Renner gave the best performance I've ever seen from him. Elizabeth Olsen, also fantastic. Taylor Sheridan, as usual, another great film out of this guy. Logan was the Wolverine film I have wanted for as long as I can remember. It was everything I wanted it to be and more. It surprised me. It took me off guard. It had graphic violence and harsh language, and one of Hugh Jackman's best performances. James Mangold, as I said in my review of The Wolverine, is a fantastic director. The problems that The Wolverine had, I saw the potential for greatness. I loved The Wolverine except for the last 20 minutes. And with Logan, he takes that potential and blows it through the roof. It's one of the best action films I've seen in years, and it pulls off an astonishing feat. Despite the fact that we have seen some really good comic book movies and an endless string of them since the early 2000s, Logan is one of the best. M. Night Shyamalan returned to form with Split and gave us one of the best performances of the year, James McAvoy as 24 different people. This performance is still being talked about, but not as much as it should be. It should be an Oscar contender, but it probably won't be. It has an ending that makes the rest of the film even better, but I loved it before that ending. It was so nice to sit in the theater in 2017, even though I saw this originally back in 2016 at the AFI Fest. I saw it again in January, and it was just so nice to be sitting in a theater seeing a great M. Night Shyamalan film. Say what you want to about this film in regards to the Thor canon. It's the third film. The first two were fairly serious. This one was basically a comedy, and all the better for it. Thor Ragnarok was one of the most fun experiences I've had at the theaters all year. I saw it twice in one weekend, and the second time I wasn't bored for a minute. It has one of my favorite finales of 2017 with the Led Zeppelin Immigrant Song bursting into this film. It was just such an exciting experience. It felt like watching a Saturday morning cartoon from the 80s blown up on the big screen. And in regards to Marvel movies, I've enjoyed quite a bit of them. I think they've done some really good things, but this might be my favorite for pure fun. It's not the best Marvel movie, but in regards to just pure, unadulterated fun, Ragnarok delivered on every front, and it gave me Korg, which I never knew I wanted. War for the Planet of the Apes is a film that has divided some fans. Some really enjoyed it. Critics seem to really dig it, but there are a lot of people that found it boring. The fact that it's called war and there's really just kind of a battle in it. To me, the film was more about a psychological war. Yeah, there's a battle in the film, and it's not so much about a bunch of guns and explosions. It's about these two groups of people, Caesar and his apes, and the humans, and the turmoil that has gone on for ages between the two. From the beginning to the end of the film, there wasn't a moment that bored me, and I was blown away by the technical mastery presented by Matt Reeves and Andy Serkis and his motion capture team. Steve Zahn was also really good in a role that could have been quite annoying, but really paid off. This is my favorite film in the Apes trilogy. For some, that might not be true. Just from a screenwriting perspective, the fact that there's basically just one big exposition scene and the rest of the film is mostly straightforward visual storytelling, I found that astounding. Greta Gerwig's debut with Lady Bird is one of the most impressive debuts I've ever seen. This film was so pure and real and just true. It just felt like I wasn't watching a movie, like I was somehow watching these recorded scenes from a documentary, just presented really beautifully. Saoirse Ronan gave an amazing performance. Really, everyone in the film was fantastic. But what was so great about Lady Bird is the fact that it just leapt off the screen and reminded me of moments that I've had in my life. I feel like just about anybody can watch this movie and be like, yeah, I relate to that in some way, shape, or form. It's so rare that I see a film where when I leave, I feel like I've just felt something, like it's really impacted me. I drive home from the theater thinking about the beauty of the film, and Lady Bird is one of those movies. All right, guys, it's come down to that time to talk about my favorite film of 2017, the film that didn't disappoint me in any way, a film that I feel is a complete technical masterpiece, and that film is... It took me a long time to appreciate the original Blade Runner. It was a film that was far more adult and mature than I expected it to be when I first watched it. So I was pretty terrified about Blade Runner 2049 because this year I really came to love the first Blade Runner. I rewatched it again and man, that is such a masterpiece. So walking into 2049, I was pretty scared and I left thinking, that might have been better than the original. This is the second year in a row that Ryan Gosling has been in my favorite film of the year. The man continues to choose incredible scripts and works with some of the best people. Denis Villeneuve directed this film, and man, him combined with Roger Deakins was one of the most eye-gasmic experiences in 2017. Harrison Ford gave one of his best performances. He did not sleepwalk through this movie at all. He was terrific as Deckard, and the film maintains a lot of the mysteries that Blade Runner did in regards to his character, which I loved. Man, what a beautiful movie. One of the best science fiction films I've seen in so long, and Blade Runner 2049 is my favorite film of the year. Guys, thank you for experiencing another year in film with me. It has been quite the ride. I had a great time talking about movies with you this year. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Look forward to my worst of the year list coming soon. Ugh. I'm already dreading it. Guys, thank you so much as always. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.